Welcome to Business Brains and the Bottom Line. My name is Paul D'Allegro, your host today, and I have another author on today, Joe Paranteau, the author of $1 Billion Sales Secrets. You can get it on Amazon. A little cheap plug there for you, Joe.
Hey, thank you very much.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here. I'm thankful for being able to join your show and your audience today.
No, it's great. So obviously, I'm in sales, so it's a subject that's near and dear to my heart, and a lot of sales books out there, Joe.
Absolutely. Too many. I've read a lot of them.
Yeah, I have too. I'm not sure they're worth much, but it is what it is. So, but before we get into the book, I was looking at your bio, and you get a pretty interesting background. The most interesting part of that is you are the first generation to live outside an Indian reservation. So that has got to be a huge part of who you are.
It is.
Right?
It's and it's something that outwardly it's not the first thing that people see, because they have a perception of how Native Americans, indigenous people look. I don't look like someone from Dances with Wolves, so I trim my hair and I'm kind of clean cut.
Yeah.
It's been that way ever since I joined the military. I've kind of always kept it nice and short. But yeah, my name is Ozal Makwa, and I'm a member of the Little Shell tribe of Anishinaabe, Chippewa, Cree of northern Montana. And my dad grew up in a place called Box Elder, right near Rocky Boy Indian Reservation. So I'm the first in my family, not only to go to college, but to kind of grow up outside of that area. And it's been interesting.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Adjusting to certain things that people just take for granted.
Sure.
But it's fun. Like whenever I go back to Montana, I find myself talking a certain way and
assimilating, right?
Yeah, assimilating.
That's sales, though.
Sales, exactly.
Right? Mirroring. It's called mirroring, right?
So I've learned a lot through that, and it's helped me tremendously. I think it's been a real benefit in sales.
Yeah, we're all byproduct of our environment, right? I think everything influences us. You often wonder. I often think of that. If I grew up in a different environment, who would I be today?
Yeah,
it's a tough question because you never know.
Yeah, it's you've got to take all those experiences and your background and your history and run with it, and recognize that you're truly unique and there's no one else like you.
So let's jump right into it, Joe. I've had an author on before, and I've actually done a couple of authors. So why'd you write the book? What possessed you to write? You're a busy guy. You're a pilot. You do a lot of different things, and you wrote a book. What was the genesis of that?
Well, in sales, as you know, people will say things, and you can take them and believe them. And over a period of years, I've had probably as far back as like 15 years ago, I had somebody say, "Oh, I've never experienced someone in sales who does this like you do," and it was from a customer. And I was like, "Yeah, you're just unlucky, I guess." So you sort of just take it, and you're proud, but you don't really believe it. And I've always been a voracious reader of every other sales book that's out there. I mean, I've read so many. I try and read, one book a month, just in general. And so as I went through my career, I had other people tell me, partners, customers, coworkers, "Hey, you should write a book." It wasn't until I surpassed a goal of selling $1 billion in a 5-year span that I really started to believe myself and said, maybe I know something about selling that I could offer other people.
Okay.
And so I set out to write the sales book that I wish existed when I started my sales career that includes some stuff that I've never seen in sales books before. Like, what do you do if you're successful? How do you deal with sales managers? And some other things like, mindset.
Right. So any part of the process surprise you? Was it easier, harder than you thought? What do you think?
I would encourage everyone to write a book. I think we all have stories inside of us. And the magical thing about writing a book, once I decided that I was going to do it, I jumped all in and said, I'm gonna write this book. Is I sat back, and you would think that it starts off with, hey, it was a dark and stormy night. It starts off with your story. It really doesn't, because it started me thinking about who I wanted to reach from an audience standpoint. And it made me question everything that I knew about sales. So I put a whole bunch of Post-it notes on the wall of everything that I thought I knew, and I started researching probably for about a year into what I was going to write about and who I was going to reach out to. And that impacted what I produced in the book. And so people who know me, they initially would think, oh, this is going to be something about you. And I think a lot of people are surprised to find out that it's more about the reader. I try and open up the book so people can go on their own self-discovery.
Yeah, and I think I did read this somewhere in the book that even though this is a sales book, it's for non-sales people as well, because I think you made the comment, we're all sellers and we're all buyers too.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, and we've all had good salespeople. I mean, one of the things that I kind of laugh about is that some people who get into sales, they think, and I've seen a couple people do this, they think that they should emulate what they know a salesperson is. So I've had people who've sales managed me who decided to go watch, Boiler Room or Wolf of Wall Street. And then they come in there the next day and they're like, coffee is for closers.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, what did you just do? You're emulating what you think is the way professional salespeople should be. And there's too much of that. So I decided to set the record straight and put some other alternative approaches that people could look at.
So what would you say your style is? If and in the book you have like a dozen secrets. We don't have enough time to go through all of them, right?
Right.
But if you had to kind of pick the top 2, 3, what is your style? Because everyone has a style. Some people are relationship sellers. Some people are really technical sellers. Some people, everyone's different, or some people are hybrids, right? So what's your style, and what are the kind of the secrets that you want to share in this book?
One of the things that I have equated selling to be like, it's like playing chess on 6 different chessboards while you're balancing the chessboards. It's something that's complex, and it's hard to explain to people who may not be from a selling background.
Right.
But when you get into sales, there's a lot of complexity. There's a lot of ambiguity. You learn to think on your feet. And I'd say that the style that I've adapted to has been based on my curiosity. And I think of things as puzzles that you try and figure out. So I'm insanely curious. I'm strategic. I'm relational, but I borrow from some of the great people, like, you look at Brian Tracy some of the people who teach closing secrets. The need for that isn't the same as it used to be, but it's helpful to go, study what Dale Carnegie did and what Brian Tracy had reached out and shared, because that helps inform engagement. And really what I do is I build value with customers. I try and align value. And anyone who's bought or sold anything, you'll realize the great salespeople in your life. You'll say, okay, that's somebody who really helped me make a decision. I was better because of that person. Right. And conversely, we all know the people who are horrible.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. We have customers that, we'll get engaged with a customer and they'll say, I'm just sick of salespeople that just sell me stuff and run. Right. So, you're in technology sales, as am I. So if you just sell stuff and run, you're not going to last very long at that customer. If you can't add value and help them design and architect a solution that's going to work today and be scalable in the future, you're going to be in trouble. I
always tell people selling is something we do with others, not to them.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Because it is. We always tell people, we're part of your team. Mm-hmm. Once we get engaged, once we build that trust, we become part of your team. We're an extension. We're sitting in on staff meetings. We're helping you, discuss solutions that are going to help you the whole bit, not just, sell stuff and, call us when you need us.
And one of my first mentors in sales, her name was Lorraine. I am an accidental salesperson. I wanted to be in politics, and I thought I was going to be in PR. I had gone for an interview in Portland, Oregon with the mayor at the time. Her name was Vera Katz. And I walked into the office. Her and her aides were barefoot. I looked around and they were like, hey, we can pay you about $10,000 a year. And I just kind of furrowed my brow and I was like, okay, well, my student loans are about 6 times that. So, so I'm like, it's gonna take me a while to get out of this hole.
Yeah.
And the vibe was just weird. And I was like, okay, this isn't right. But I had an electrical engineering degree and a communications degree. I talked to Lorraine and she said, sales is all about helping people get what they want or need. And to me, that was a drop the mic moment that she just had an indelible imprint on me, because I thought about it and I was like, okay, yeah, I think she's right. I can look myself in the mirror every day and approach selling is something honorable,
Yeah.
something that I'm doing to help people. And that's what I've done. Even to this day, first thing I do, I wake up, I look in the mirror, I'm like, I'm going to help someone today.
Yeah. No, that's a great point, by the way. I think if more people put the customer's needs first, your needs are going to be taken care of in the end. But that's really kind of my mindset too. What, if I got to help the customer, not, geez, how much can I make off this deal today? It's just short-sighted.
Yeah, and I found too, whenever you're focused on like the numbers and the metrics, sometimes people will not come into sales because of that. But it's all wrong. If you focus on the customer, the metrics kind of work themselves out. And in landing, $1 billion in 5 years, I had a metric of, at one point I started out with like 240 million a year, 350 a year, 420 million a year. That's a couple million a day, when you take all the selling days. And to just sit back and contemplate, what does that look like? It's scary.
I can't imagine, because there's not many people around that did $1 billion in sales. I can tell you that right now. That's just not.
And it's, to be honest, it all wasn't me, but it was me getting the number and saying, here's the people who I have to activate and bring on board to help me. And anyone else is looking at doing stuff, you've got to realize sales is a full contact sport. You can't do it on your own. You've got to bring people in the boat with you to help you get there. And you got to be willing to help customers, align the value to what they want.
No, completely agree. And another thing, you're getting me thinking of all these cliches now that, but there's a couple things I try to live by, and I always said, a customer's not going to buy from you unless he trusts you, likes you, respects you, or a combination of those three. Because once you can get to that point, then it becomes a real great opportunity to sell, because now you've gained their trust, and until you do something different to destroy that trust, you should be in good shape at that point. And that's when sales is fun to me. I never have enjoyed doing commodity sales.
Right.
I need 15 of these. Okay, you can call. You can get those online, right? But
yeah, and even people who may be in commodity sales or something like that, you don't have to be commoditized.
Right.
You can choose to shine differently than others in your industry, and guess what that'll do? That'll set you apart from everyone else. It'll make you money. It'll endear you to customers, and that's what people want. People want to know, I could go out and buy, office paper and supplies from anyone. But when someone comes and they sell me and they're like, hey, have you considered how this is actually better for the type of printer that you have and some of the things that you're working on? You want some acid-free paper to put your book plates in because that's going to last longer. That's going to help you make a better connection to your readers.
Yep.
This is a great example of a salesperson who sold me on the value and the outcome. They look beyond just selling me a ream of paper.
Yeah, no, completely agree. And I'm a big believer in regular cadence with customers too. That not just what's the other gripe you hear about salespeople? Yeah, you sales guys are all like you're only here when there's a PO, right?
Right.
Well, I believe you have to be there for the good, the bad, and the ugly too, right? So they realize, okay, when it hits the fan, he's going to have my back. That's
one of the things where from an indigenous, Native American background, we think of time differently. So time is this circular concept, not linear. So when we think of the linear concept of time, you start here. But in a sales cycle, thinking of this as a circular progress, you mentioned, you're only there when the PO is available. If you think of, hey, every sale that I win, that's the start of another sales cycle. That's the start of something bigger or an opportunity to grow or spin off into 3 or 4 different sales. For me, that came naturally, but that was something that I didn't realize was a different way of thinking. I didn't realize that I thought this way. And so for me, getting the follow-on sale and the sale after that was no big deal. One of the biggest sales in my life that I landed was a sale where I had a great initial win. Everyone was celebrating. They were like, oh, this is unbelievable. But as soon as I did that, I went and looked for the next one. And while my competitor was sleeping, I picked their pocket and we got that business because everyone was just focused on this deal that we won and they lost. And I was like, okay, time to move on to the next. I'm not going to bask in success because there's more out here. And I think that that's a really important thing to think about for people is that you're not defined by what you've done in the past. You're defined by your best next thing. And there's tons of potential to help people out there. And what are you going to do next?
Yeah, no, completely agree. It's especially in sales, right? You know, it's a monthly, quarterly driven business, and you could break world records last quarter. It's okay. It's a new quarter. What have you done?
Right. What have you done for me lately?
That's
It's
just the
always-
nature of the beast. It's not for everybody.
Right.
I know some people that have jumped into it and got back out. They're like, I don't have the stomach for this. I can't take the pressure every week, every day pipeline calls and quarterly business reviews and all that other stuff.
Yeah, I love it because if you like having a role where things change every day and there's opportunities to learn something every day, there's opportunities to travel, meet new people, solve problems, it's a great profession. And a lot of people overlook it, and they really, to their detriment.
Yeah, and that's the reason why I got in too. By the way, I wanted the freedom to kind of do what I wanted to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can run your business however you want, really, right? And so I like the flexibility of being able to work from home, work on the road, go visit customers. Versus I was never going to be a 9-to-5 guy. I knew that early on in my career,
Right.
So
Well, it's one of the, when you look at the Fortune 500 and the CEOs, like 75% of them have been in sales roles in the past because it provides you that real broad understanding of a company to help solve problems and diagnose and correct and fix.
okay. So like I said, in your book, you have like a ton of these secrets.
Mm-hmm.
We'll call them secrets. So let's dive into a few of those. I mean, what are your I'm looking at the list right now. What are the ones you want to talk about? Which ones are the top secrets that you're going to share just here today with our audience?
Yeah, there's a couple that make the book interesting. Like I said, this is something I wish I would have read. The one that a lot of people gravitate toward is sales managers suck.
Honestly, that was one I was hoping you'd bring up. Right, I was going to let you talk about that. That's a good one. Okay, let's.
But yeah, in a sales book, I've never read about the seller relationship with their managers and their chain of leaders. But a lot of people will gripe about their leaders, and some people will be like, I've got the best leaders around. The important part is, as a sales professional, think about these relationships the same way you would customer relationships. A lot of people who are complaining, oh, my sales manager is horrible. Well, have you taken the time to plan for your sales engagements with that manager? Have you taken the time to prep, to come with insights, to offer something to help them out the same way you would your customers? And so people adopt this two-tiered view that, my relationship with my manager is different than my customers. No, it's the same thing. You're meeting a need, you're solving problems, you're delivering value, and that's kind of one of the keys to that.
You got to manage that relationship. That's a big one. I hear that from a lot of guys that their bosses have a tough reputation, but they don't seem to have a problem because, like you said, on their weekly reviews, they're prepared, they're ready. So that it's the guys that don't show up prepared. They get themselves in trouble.
Yeah, and it's you want to be in business, and I love what you said about hey, it's managing my own business, and a lot of people have that entrepreneurial spirit as a salesperson to run your own business. And when I'm getting into business with people, I want to know that I can trust them, that I can respect them, and that's how you bring that respect. It's how you show up. So that's one secret. The other secret that's interesting, I put at the end of the book, is what do you do if you're successful? I'd never seen that in a sales book. And this one's interesting because I blew it in my sales career big time. Whenever you get that taste of success, what do you do? Well, I know what I did. I went out and just blew all my money.
Yeah, I was going to say, bought a boat. And
started buying cars and vacation homes and all this stuff.
Everyone's done that once in their life, though. Anyone who's made any money, especially guys like you. I grew up in a poor Italian family.
Right.
We had no money, so when I started making money, I did some things. It's like you did too. I mean, I think that's natural. Why do you think these pro athletes get themselves in trouble?
That's exactly. Yeah, I've got a couple pro athletes I know, and the same thing. And it's that's why I also put some mindset stuff in here because. It's proven that when you're poor and you grow up with not a lot, you envision money to be bigger than it is. I mean, your concept of money, when poor kids are asked to draw some money for me, they draw these huge dollar bills and huge coins. And the rich kids, it looks like chicken feed. It's like little tiny things on a sheet of paper, and you're like, what's that? Oh, that's money.
Yeah.
And
it was always there.
Yeah, it's always there, but it's that, it's stuck in your head, and you either... I talk about the abundance and the scarcity mindsets, and I kind of got this from Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, great book, but huge mindset shifter because you start thinking in these ways and you're constrained by that, or you're liberated by it. And
Yeah, you can put a lot of limiting factors on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, hey, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not educated enough.
why would they ever buy from me?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or the CEO will never meet with me. Well, guess what? They might actually want to meet with you.
Yeah.
You might be the person that has a innovative idea that's going to help their company.
So you talk about in your book, sellers for non-sellers. That's another thing that was kind of an interesting topic to me. Is I hear people say, "Oh, I'm not a salesperson," but the reality is we're all salespeople.
We are.
Right? I mean, and we're all buyers and sellers. So talk about that a little bit, that mentality.
Yeah, it's like, hey, where do you want to go for lunch? Guess what? You're in a sales call right there.
Right.
Or what movie do we want to see? Or where do we want to go on vacation? We're always selling. And then everyone has been in this position. Why should we hire you? And then if you are successful in business, you want to start your own business, why should we lend to you? You're coming here to get VC money. Why do we want to back you?
You're selling.
You're selling, and sales is just an essential skill that everyone needs.
Yep.
Something, and we don't teach it enough in school. Nobody goes through high school learning how to sell, but guess what? You're going to have to sell in your life. Someone wants to, they want to close the deal with a young lady or a guy. If you're a guy, you got to get down on one knee and close the deal and say, "Will you marry me?" And,
That's right.
And you're selling. So we all sell. Some people do it better than others, but we could all use, a skills refresher on how to get better.
I am surprised they don't have more like official college programs around selling. Another thing, unrelated to selling, but they don't teach finance courses like basic finance about how to invest.
I agree.
That time value of money, right? No one ever told me until I got to get a little older. And I'm like, wait a sec. If I put this much away for the next 40 years, this is how much I'm going to have. Where do I sign up for that? Just some basic stuff. No one teaches it.
One of the things I was so encouraged by is there are colleges today that have selling programs as part of their marketing curriculum, and they do sales competitions. This was foreign to me for about a year ago, and when I was writing the book, I got in contact with some of these schools, and they're like, Illinois, Northern Arizona University. They're somewhat of the smaller schools, Southern University, who have these sales competition programs, but they're great because college students get to actually go and present in front of judges. And I mean, what a great experience to go through college. For me, when I went through college, I got to do academic debate. Okay. So again, same type of thing.
Selling,
If you ever get a chance to do any of these things, do them because they'll be the best courses that prepare you for the future. And I don't care what you're planning to do, those things are going to help you.
Yeah. You're touching on something that I've told my kids is, public speaking, one of people's biggest fears. And I said to them, you've got to get out of your comfort zone a little bit because you're going to find it's not as bad as you think it is, and it's going to open up more opportunities for you.
Right. And one of the things, I'll give you a nugget that I haven't shared anywhere, is as a communication major, I put a whole chapter in there about giving presentations and what happens when you connect with people. What's really interesting is that there's a lot that happens when you first meet people. And don't take those moments for granted because they're super important. You have 3 seconds to make a first impression or less. And when you're coming to meet that person the first time out, there's a lot of stuff that comes with that interaction. There's your history, there's the other person's history, your culture, their culture, all the things and experiences that they've had up to that point. And what's interesting is I've talked to people who are neuroscientists, and they've told me about what happens at a subatomic layer.
Oh, God.
And that's really heavy because they're talking about, your brain, the electrical conductivity. If you ever have those lights where you go touch a light and it turns on, it's because you have capacitance in your body. So there is this magnetism. There's this stuff that happens. It's why you can feel someone's hand close to you if you're in a dark room and there's no lights whatsoever. And people have been blind for life. They can kind of feel, things around them. It's because there's a lot more happening at a deeper level. And my point here is that don't take it for granted. Take and do your prep in advance. You want to show up, like you said, public speaking, practicing. Sometimes you'll practice something for hours and hours before you actually have the presentation. Everyone who's given a sales pitch has known this feeling where you're walking around and you're going, furthermore, I'd like to share why we're the best solution for you.
And I know you've done this because we all have. How many times you've been in a hotel room the night before, walking in your room with your clicker, going through the PowerPoint, going over and over, big presentation. I don't know. I would think every sales guy's done that at least once in their life. Right?
Absolutely, and those are the things that are great about, because you learn more in the process. People say practice makes perfect. I like to say perfect practice makes perfect. And one of my mentors is somebody told me about the 7P principle that I put in the book, and it's called proper prior planning prevents piss poor performance.
Okay.
But it makes sense. And he used to, when I was young in my sales career, he told me that. He's like, the 7P principle, this is what you need to know. And I'm like, makes sense. Come prepared. And it's stuck with me.
I think I read an article once, and they compared all the best violinists and all these people that were the top of their field in the world, and they all had one thing in common: 10,000 hours of practice.
Right.
Right.
And Michael Jordan, even if you listen to his teammates, he'd be out there shooting hoops way before anyone else would show up.
Yeah.
And hours before, and just practicing and getting good at what he was already probably one of the best basketball players that's ever lived, felt the need to practice, repeatedly, religiously every day.
Yeah, because I think those guys are so driven. There's that whole era of, between Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan. That was an unbelievable era in basketball.
Those Olympics were...
Yeah, 92, I believe.
If you liked watching a lot of U.S. hoops go down. Yeah. So hopefully our team this year will continue, but the rest of the world's gotten on board. They're we need to practice basketball.
Yeah, we'll see. By the time this is aired, I think the Olympics will be over, but we'll see, because they just started. So so it'll probably be over by then. So another interesting, shifting from the book a little bit, you just went and got your MBA too. I noticed that on your bio. What possessed you to do that?
I know. So I won't...
And you're not 20.
I'm not 20, so I'm at least twice as old as that.
Yeah, exactly.
But... I'd started my MBA a long time ago, and due to, some family issues and things that happened at the time, I stopped it, and had always wanted to go back. I'd seen people, get their MBAs, and I was like, well, I've got my MBA in selling. That was my cop-out.
Sure.
I'm like, I've got my MBA in selling. I know how to sell. And but Microsoft, I work for Microsoft today, and they agreed to pay, for some of my MBA. And I'm like, I really want to do this. As a salesperson, as a person, I'm into growing and developing.
Okay.
And I said, I'm going to learn something from this experience, and I did. I went into classes, and a lot of people of different ages and backgrounds, and I loved it, because if you think you know it all, guess what? That's like the nail in your coffin.
Yeah.
You're putting it, but everyone can learn at any age. And I found that having all these experiences as a professional salesperson dealing with business, it just gave me more background to appreciate what I was learning. Yeah. When they talk about something, I'm like, oh yeah, I've seen that happen at this company.
Yeah, I often thought of that. If you go for an MBA right after undergrad and you never have a job, I often wonder, geez, I think it'd be go out in the workforce for a few years, experience business, and then you can bring a lot to the table from like, okay, I understand that now.
Yeah, I would, I love education, so not to knock it, but I think that there's something to be said by going out and doing experiential learning and learning on the job.
Yeah.
And I would totally agree. It made so much more sense to me to go through those experiences and have some things behind my belt to then appreciate it. And so now I'm like, oh yeah, I've not only graduated with this, but I know how to use it day to day, and I've started using it as I was learning new things, and it's a rich experience. And I wonder that if people go and they're too young, are they benefiting from those experiences and truly leveraging what they learned?
Because it's all theory at that point, right?
Yeah.
It's just all. I mean, granted, a lot of those professors are ex-business folks, so they can bring a lot to the table from an educational standpoint. But there's nothing like experiencing it in my mind.
Yeah, there's some things that I learned, like organizational behavior. They have these things called the Big Five, and all HR departments and people know about the Big Five. But what was beneficial to me is understanding what are the characteristics of salespeople that make great salespeople. And it's things like we all know these things intuitively. It seems like it's like conscientiousness. Am I a hard worker? Do I have a good work ethic? How curious am I? Am I open to new ideas? Those are some of the things that represent top performers. And I'm like, oh yeah, I kind of knew that, but it was validation behind that.
Sure.
And then learning different nuances of how do I help, grow an organization's human capital in addition to their financial capital.
Yeah.
That was kind of the icing on the cake of why it was valuable.
Yeah, I was going to say that kind of leads me into my next question. Is so you go get your MBA and you really do believe that it's helped you in your career because you're in a leadership position.
Correct.
You're not in a direct individual contributor role at this point. Am I right on that?
Right. Yeah. So my last individual contributor role was when I did the $1 billion in sales, and to give me time to write the book, I decided to jump into a leadership role. That gave me a little bit lighter travel schedule and some focus time to do both of these things. I just didn't realize they'd collide at the same period of time. So the book launched right when I was in my last semester of my MBA. It was a little chaotic.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. So any regrets writing the book or any regrets getting out of being an individual contributor and going to a leadership position? Because that's a big one sales guys talk about. Do I want a management? Do I want a leadership position? I like what I'm doing.
Yeah, I think that my career has been defined by I started out in sales, was good at it. Very quickly, then I'm like, oh, we got to throw this guy into a leadership role. And so I spent 3 or 4 years in a leadership role after I had been only selling for like 3 or 4 years. So that was a great experience. I got some hard knocks there, but then I'm like, forget this. I'm going to go back to individual contributor role. And so my career has been I've had these different roles in different time periods, but one thing that I'll say that's valuable having sold, and I wrote a little bit about this in the Sales Manager Suck, is people who are in charge of promoting others into sales roles recognize that it's not the best salesperson who's always going to make the best leader.
Right.
It's sometimes the best sales coach is going to be different than the best salesperson. And you can have a sales coach, you can have a sales manager. One's kind of operational focused, one's kind of motivational and strategic focused. But think more outside the box of who you put in these roles and why, and then give people the development they need to be successful, because they might really want to do this, but they are not competent at doing it. They don't have the confidence needed to lead teams of the size that you're expecting them to. So these are some things that I think I've noticed. Just what's wrong in sales leadership today. And if you're a salesperson in these roles, have a little bit of of heart and figure out how can I help make this better.
Yeah.
Because if this is a situation, you might have to go to multiple different people to help make you better. There's many people who have relied on just, hey, this is my sales manager, I'm going to learn everything from them. Well, no, who's ever done that in life?
Yeah. It's funny, you get me thinking about, managers. And, I kind of had a theory about managers that the good ones from the bad ones, I always felt the good ones had a certain even keel about them. Poised when the things were going badly, they didn't change. When the things were going super well, still the same. And they kind of trusted their style, trusted their techniques and how to motivate, empower, educate, all that stuff. But the ones that weren't so great were the ones that, when the things were great, they were like taking everyone out for drinks. But as soon as the number wasn't there, they're a tyrant. And I just always thought that was just such an unattractive style.
Right.
It kind of was annoying to me.
And then even there's a whole nother style where people feel they have to be like, tough or hard on people. And I'll never forget this. There was a leader that I met who literally ruled with an iron fist. And you were late to his meetings, forget it. Don't bother coming to the meeting. Is essentially it. And then one day, after I was no longer, working that closely with him, he revealed, it was just a show.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
And I'm like,
yeah,
that's a horrible show.
Well, some of the big companies that we know about, that's the way their leaders are trained, and they're trained. I don't agree with the style, but it's, hey, you've got your team, you got your top guys, the bottom. There's going to be turnover at the bottom. Just grind these guys. They're going to quit, or you're going to fire them in 2 years, a year. Just get someone new in there. I've never agreed with that style. I think it's just you're wasting a lot of time and effort and money trying to rehire and retrain
Yep.
versus try to bring those guys up. But
And I was in the military, so I know what that, what a directive style of leadership looks like, because there's times in the military when they're like, hey, we're going to be directive and give you an order, and you follow the order. And if you don't, we're sending you to Leavenworth,
Sure.
failure to obey a lawful order,
Yeah.
So, but what's interesting is they don't see the other side. So people tend to think, oh, I'm going to be like a military general or, whatever, and that's how I'm going to lead. But when I was in the Air Force, I learned some great servant leadership principles from people who were still great mentors to me to this day.
Really?
And they said, hey, what we do around the holidays is we serve. So, put this apron on. We're going to go into the mess hall, and we're going to cook dinner. We're going to wash the dishes. We're going to serve people. We're going to scoop the food on people's plates.
Yeah.
And I thought that was very refreshing. And it didn't end there. But they realized, they're like, okay, we've got all these young people, 18, 19-year-olds with multi-billion-billion-dollar equipment that we're entrusting them to, and we're entrusting our lives to them. We need them to function well as part of the mission. So we need to make sure that they feel valued, trusted, appreciated. And so these little things of just like, hey, I really want to thank you for what you did there. That was great. Thanks for putting in the extra hours. I appreciate what you're doing. There's so many people who don't do enough of that.
Yeah, a little pat in the back goes a long way, right?
Goes a long way, and it's something I learned in the military early on. People who have this, this autocratic style of leadership, they probably never realize that in the military works a lot like that, because it's a band of brothers and sisters, and it's trust. It's letting you know that you can trust your life with someone else.
But you know what's funny to me, Joe, is this still guy with all the information that's out there, with social media and everything, all the information that's out there. You would think guys would learn, like, being a militant leader, it has never worked. Not in sales. I mean, like you said, there's a time when you have to be hard. But if you're going to do this day in, day out and just grinding people are just going to quit.
Yeah, and now there's there's tremendous amount of places people can go. I mean, you just look around, everyone's got a job,
Yep.
We're hiring sign staked out there. So
yeah, not to get generational too, but I think our generation was of the old school of, hey, you got to suck it up, you got to do your time. Well, this younger generation, and I think it's something good about it, is that they won't tolerate that.
Yeah, I love it. It's
I kind of tip my cap to them. I go, I wish I knew it. You guys know, because if they're not happy, they're just going to leave.
Yeah, and one thing that, for seasoned sellers, find some people you can mentor in sales, because guess what? You're going to learn a ton from them. I mean, the way that we're selling digitally, socially, social selling is changing the whole fabric of sales. And, seasoned salespeople can learn from junior salespeople. It benefits both people.
Yep. Hey, I'm in that category that I just learned something. I released a podcast today on social selling.
Oh, that's great.
My guest was she's a social selling expert, and actually, she was actually my coach for a while. So I learned a lot. So I'm trying to adapt to the times too. So I'm doing a lot of the statistic that I heard was 67% of all technology buyers will go 3 to 5 times to social media to look for content before they will call a rep.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're out there socially selling and getting your name out there, hopefully you're creating a brand for yourself. And that's the one thing I took away from that. That was a stunning statistic to me.
Yeah, there's so I actually did, like I said, when writing the book, I went and I did a lot of research. And some of the research I came across was the way that people buy today.
Okay.
And so these neuroscientists actually researched what goes on in people's brains. They connected, EEGs, and they got brainwave activity. What do people do when they're going through a buying cycle? And what was staggering about that, like you said, is not only do 68% of the people go to these multiple touches, but it's like 80% of the people have been further along in the sales cycle than the seller ever realizes, because they've gotten tons of information, they've researched websites, so they're at a point now where they're conceptualizing value way before the seller has ever had a first hello.
Right.
So when they're calling you in and you're like, hey, I want to tell you about what we can do for your company. No, forget that, because that's not a good approach. This person's already, you have to catch up to where they're
Sure.
at. And so you have to be a little bit of, leading the witness and say, hey, very nice to meet you. Tell me a little bit about, what you're doing in this project or this initiative. here's what I know about you. Here's something that I can add a value, but you have to map where they're at because they're so much further ahead of you already.
Yeah.
And if you just come in and unload on them,
Sure.
you know, it's
a delicate balance, right?
Yeah.
I mean, just to go in and say, you know, you've got to do everything different than you're doing it today is not going to go.
Correct. Yeah.
Telling them their baby's ugly is never a good strategy.
It's not a good strategy.
Until you're ingrained in the account, and then you've earned that credibility where you can say, hey, I'm gonna have to put a time out on this. Really, what you're doing doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But you've earned it at that point.
And I think there's everyone in sales or in business has gone through something of this where you think you understand. Putnam Investments used to have the slogan. It's like you think you understand the situation, but what you don't understand is the situation just changed.
Yeah.
And it's true in business because you'll show up into something and you'll be like, oh, I can't believe I just said that or did that. You know, you're palming your face for a mistake that you made, and you can't go back. You know, it's digging yourself out of those holes.
Yeah, we've all done it, though.
It's hard. Yeah, everyone's done it.
Anyone who says that, I mean, you know, we've all walked out of meetings going, that didn't go well.
Yeah.
You know?
But sometimes the recovery is part of the solution. I think being authentic and just saying, you know, hey, that wasn't our finest hour.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for your time, you know, and appreciate you allowing us to have this time. Would love to have share some things that I think resonate more, whether you choose us or not. And then continuing through, even if they don't pick you, I've had so many sales that have happened because I've sold after I've lost.
Yes.
And,
big one.
you know, totally golden thing that I never learned about, because you can have someone say, oh, we've lost this thing. And guess what? The bigger deal is something that you don't even know about.
Yeah.
It's like the Titanic hitting the iceberg. You might have seen this one deal above the water, and below the waterline, there's a whole lot going on.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think customers will respect you if you come in with your head high and you leave with your head high, right? Thank you for the opportunity.
Yep.
No sour grapes, and anything, you know, if anything can help them in some way, they go like, wow, that guy, you know.
And you know, that's why selling is so mental. It's because you have to be impervious to no. When somebody says no, or what they're saying, you have to have emotional intelligence enough to discern what they mean. They're not saying no to me. They're saying no to this solution at this time, aligning with this business issue. But it's not no for the entire company.
Right.
This is one person in the company. They can't speak for, you know, everything that this company is going to do in their future. So you have to have at least enough wherewithal to know that, hey, they're just saying no right now. And tomorrow's a new day, and there's someone else I can meet in the same company who might say yes, or this might be a good fit. But it's like you said, it's that delicate balance, because you don't want to be the guy or the gal who goes in and just keeps hammering after they're like, no, you know, we really,
Yeah.
this is like the 50th no.
And that's definitely a skill, knowing when to back off and when to engage, and you know, it's a tough one. We all struggle with that one, I think.
But I think part of it is, you know, mapping out and having an approach, having a plan to what your business is going to do. And if you believe wholeheartedly, and this is, you know, I remember when the Challenger sale came out, my boss put me in, you know, he's like, oh, I think, you know, they did this research on sellers, and I was one of the researchees. And so I got to do this whole question on being a Challenger seller. But, you know, part of that is not being challenging, but it's knowing and having enough passion in what you're doing.
Yep.
And if you know what you're doing is right for somebody and can convey that with passion and conviction, a lot of people go, wow, you know, that's powerful.
So, Joe, interesting book. So if someone were to get into sales, wanted to get into sales, what would you tell them? 21-year kid out of college comes to you and says, Joe, you've had a successful career, you know, do you think it's worth getting into? What do you tell them?
I'd say hang on for the ride of your life. And then I'd say, really, you don't know what a great career this is going to be for you, because there's so many things. You know, I've started a couple businesses in real estate. Guess what? The number one skill in those businesses is selling, being able to sell. But it's aligning value with others. Everyone wants to buy.
Yeah.
Buying is fun.
Yeah.
Who likes to buy? I like to buy. You know,
Yeah.
all your viewers like to buy.
Yeah.
But who likes to be sold to? Nobody. You
Yeah.
know, if you put a poll out there, and that's where I think people feel that, oh, this is not an honorable career. But it helps you unlock a lot of things in life. And I'd say just hang on for the ride of your life, because you can do a lot of great things knowing how to sell. It's a critical skill in business and life. And find the models who are worth modeling after. The people who, Byron Nelson, great guy, golfer in North Texas. He contributes, to the salesmanship club. That was the Byron Nelson. And what is that about? Salesmanship club. That's, salespersonship club. That's a great thing because you're adding value to people and you're giving back at the same time. So yeah, I encourage anyone who wants to get on the board to sell to do it. You won't regret it.
Awesome. Well, Joe, if someone wanted to get in touch with you, learn more about the book, how would they get in touch with you?
So it's super easy. My name, Paranteau, you just have to start spelling it. No, I'm just kidding. So the JPAR. A lot of people know me by JPAR because it's easier to spell than Paranteau. Social media, thejpar.com. That's my website, www.thejpar.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, by that. So reach out to me. I will say I'm completely honored to share these ideas with others. But what I get back that really jazzes me up, and I'm sure you run into this a lot in the podcast, is when you meet those people and they say, hey, I took these couple of things and here's what I did. And it's way better or different than I would have ever guessed. I get supercharged when people
I can imagine.
respond back. I got an email from someone in Russia, and they wrote completely in Russian about how I impacted their business. And I was first blown away.
That's
because
awesome.
I couldn't read it. And I was debating with people. I'm like, why did they send me in Russian? And then we concluded Cyrillic keyboard. That's all they had. They were like, I'm going to write in Russian because it's easier. I can't write this English stuff.
They have all those translating programs out there right now.
That's what I did. I just kind of copied it, translated it.
Google Translate. And you got to love it.
And I was able to, to get on that. I use Bing, so I'm But anyway, that's what I did, and I translated it and I read it, and I was completely humbled by it.
That's a great story.
And the cool thing is, the book is written to kind of help other people write their stories. And you've had some great guests on here. I encourage people to continue watching the podcast because you have some tremendous things that I've learned from people where I'm just smiling, and I'm happy that I got to know you. How I got to meet you was through networking.
Yeah, really was.
And that's a sales skill.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, well, thanks for, and that's kind of the reasons on the show. I don't stick to one topic. I wanted to have a wide variety. I don't want to have guys like you on. I wanted to have technology folks on, personal interest stories. It's just been a fun ride, and I'm learning a lot too. It's and like I said, learning is always fun. So
yeah, I love it, and really appreciate it. I will say that connecting with you is really refreshing. Other salespeople, but just talking about what it's like to go through this world together.
Yeah,
and. I think a lot of people right now, sales is what's going to help our economy get back and rebound. And it's going to be tough for some people for a while. I mean, we've got some inflation and some things going on, but
we always bounce back.
Nothing happens until a sale.
That's right.
I think it was Thomas Watson, or I don't know who claimed it.
Yeah, but it's one of those guys.
One of those guys who did that, but it's true. It fuels everything.
Okay. Well, I'll close with $1 billion sales secrets. Joe Print. You can buy this on Amazon. I encourage everyone to read it. It's a great book. I really enjoyed it. And Joe, again, thanks for being on the show. And that's a wrap of Business Brains and the Bottom Line. Until next time.